with older players. It forced me to grow up faster and to not be afraid of playing with them.
He was so thin. I would say to my husband, one kick in the shins from those big guys he's playing against could break his leg. But my husband always used to say that he could run faster than them.
By age 11, he'd made such an impression on everyone who saw him play that he was already a star in his native Madeira. And with this first whiff of celebrity, he got his first nicknames.
He used to cry, even if his friends didn't score. He'd get upset very easily. And so people gave him nicknames. They called him Crybaby and also Little B, because no one was able to catch him on the pitch.
It was soon apparent that Nacional just wasn't big enough to handle this special talent, and Fanao's decision that Cristiano's future was on the Portuguese mainland easily followed. The Godfather soon came up with a plan. Nacional owed Sporting Lisbon €22,500 but didn't have the money to pay off the debt. So President Rui Alves decided that Ronaldo would go to Sporting if Sporting forgot the debt. That was the plan. But Alves and Nacional knew that Sporting would take some persuading. There was one man in Madeira who could help thrash out a deal between the clubs. Judge Marques Freitas, a Sporting fan with a good reputation on the mainland.
Aurelio Pereira told me that for Cristiano to get to Sporting, they'd need to do a technical report. But if we got the kid to Lisbon, they could see what he would be worth. So we bought a ticket and he went to Lisbon.
Benfica also wanted him, but I preferred Sporting because that's my team. I told his godfather he's going away now so that he'll go on to become a great.
It was 1997 and Ronaldo was now 12 years old. It was decided that he would go to Sporting for a trial during the Easter break.
I was confident and excited, thinking, oh God, I'm going to Sporting for trials. I didn't sleep at all that night. I'd never even been on a plane. I went with my mother. I was very nervous, small and thin. But it was a good experience. I knew I was going to make it and show I was a good player. And I knew I would get into the team straight away, right from the very first training sessions.
The big day, 17th of April 1997, coaches Osvaldo Silva and Paulo Cardoso were there to welcome him and put him to work with older players. It wasn't long before Sporting Lisbon was dazzled by the youngster from Madeira.
We organised the trial match, and when the game began, Ronaldo soon got the ball. He went past 2-3 players. Osvaldo Silva and I looked at each other and said, here's something special. At the end, all the players gathered round him. Everyone knew here was a special player, an amazing kid.
After that trial, Ronaldo received his first technical report.
A player of unusual talent, very advanced technically, an excellent dribbler, both on the ball and off it. Sign him up.
I didn't have much experience at the time, but after that first trial, I felt something incredible. I had never seen such quality in a player.
His obvious personality and familiarity with the ball made me confident enough to write that report, along with the two other technicians, in order to persuade the Sporting management that he was worth that kind of money.
Ronaldo returned to Madeira a week later. It was now left to Aurelio Pereira to persuade Sporting's management that the kid they'd just seen was worth the money.
It was a bit strange to pay for a 12-year-old. We don't usually pay for kids of that age. But they said that that was the only way we could get him, and they promised he was exceptional.
To this day, Sporting has never paid anything near that much for another 12-year-old.
The report persuaded Simoes de Almeida, while Aurelio Pereira was so sure of Ronaldo's quality that he wrote an extra note, which proved decisive in convincing Sporting's manager to sign Ronaldo.
Although the sum seems to be absurd for a 12-year-old, it's a great investment taking into consideration the trials held by our technical team. 28th June 1997.
Another giant stride for the young Cristiano. He would return to Sporting for the beginning of the next season in August 1997. He would live at Sporting's Alvalade Training Academy. First, though, there were emotional farewells to family and friends as he prepared to face a new world alone.
I remember saying goodbye to my sisters and my mother. It was so sad. My sisters and mother were crying, but it had to be done. I remember being on the plane at the airport, surrounded by my family. And when the plane took off, tears ran down my face as I saw my brother and sisters and mother crying because of me. But that's life. It's only natural. I'd never been away from my family before. They didn't turn their backs on me, but having to live on my own, those were difficult times.
It was a new beginning for the young Ronaldo. At only 12 years old, much of his childhood still lay ahead of him without his family at hand. Living with other players at the club's training academy, the inevitable homesickness set in.
When I arrived in Lisbon, it was like people were speaking a different language. I spoke with a Madeiran accent, a bit like I still do when I'm with my family. But it was almost like a totally different language. I arrived with my Madeiran accent, and then there were other changes. The people, the life, the stress levels, everything was different. It wasn't easy to live with people I didn't know. There were lots of them too. Over 20 athletes, all older than me. Fabio and I were the youngest. At first we used to cry a lot, we were homesick. And I'd speak 2 or 3 times a week with my family. We used to buy those 50-unit phone cards. We'd call our families, and I'd look at the units clicking down while I was talking to my brothers and sisters. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was hard. I cried every day with my friends. But as time went by, things got better. The players and the directors were always there for me and gave me good advice.
Outside football, Sporting provide their athletes with an education. Leonel Pontes, a coach also from Madeira, became Ronaldo's guardian. He was chosen to look after him both on the pitch and at school.
He was
a smart kid, but he didn't like to study. His dreams and ambitions were all about football. He liked football so much that school was almost a hobby. When he did his schoolwork and homework, he was an average student, not a bad one. English was his worst subject at the time.
Once I arrived on the mainland, everything changed. Even football and friends. Not that it's necessarily right. But school becomes less important in a training centre. We think more about football instead. I wanted to finish and to complete my studies. That was always my intention. I found English very difficult. Sometimes I skipped classes. I didn't pay attention, or I cheated on tests. I never thought that I'd ever need to learn English.
Lembraste muitas vezes agora.
Lembrei-me. Agora precisavas dessa disciplina. But when I speak with youngsters today, I always say to them, you may not like school, but try to go as far as you can.
He was never a bright student, but I remember him helping out another kid once, and we would joke, "You don't know anything, how can you help?" But he did his best to help the kid